Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Plotlines. I'm your host, Connor, and today we have an amazing guest to have. It's an honor to have Angela solo on this one. Angela's been a guest previously, but it's been in group situations. So I'm just happy to have Angela Erickson on to discuss Lenten motherhood. Just a little bit of a introduction for Angela. She is a mother of 5 children, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep. Five
And
living children. We did have one that's waiting for us, hopefully. So, yeah.
indeed, she is a speaker on the topics of abortion, contraception, modesty, chastity, and you can have her speak at your parish or to your group. So, if any of you are interested in that topic, go to Integrated with Angela's the website. I will have the link in the description, and you can have her come speak. And also, she is the podcast host of Integrated with Angela Erickson. I will also have the link in the description for that. So she is just an absolutely wonderful guest and a good friend.
Thank you so much, Connor. That means a lot to me. And also, if you hear pounding in the background, our daughter Veronica she's one. For those maybe who aren't familiar with me, Veronica's like my stand-in co-host on my show because she's so little. But she's standing and kind of walking now, and so she made her way to the door and she's pounding on the door,
That's
trying
great.
to make her escape. So
That's atmospheric.
yeah.
That's a part of the show now. That's an important element.
It is.
So
I also do a pro life radio show for our local
right.
relevant radio affiliate. And so it's always perfect because she's always babbling or screaming in the background, which is, it's a pro life radio show. So what else could you possibly want?
I knew I forgot one. I knew I
Oh,
forgot
that's
something.
okay.
Also, you've been on other shows on relevant radio, right? Like the
Yeah,
morning
I mean,
show.
I've been on morning air. I think once I was on the Drew Mariani show back when I was running a pregnancy center. So yeah, I've made my rounds on relevant radio a little bit.
Not to mention you worked for LifeSite News.
Yes, I formerly worked for LifeSite News and Students for Life of America. So my pro life professional chops, they're legit.
Yeah, I mean, think and you're pretty young, so you've done a lot just
Yeah.
in that time, and you're also a mother of 5 living children.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, God has really blessed me. I was just reflecting recently, just a couple days ago, actually, with someone about sort of my trajectory after college and thinking I cannot believe that somebody let me run an organization when I was 23 years old and a new mom. Like, I don't know what they were thinking, but they did. And I ran that pregnancy center for 2 years. So yeah, it was just
Awesome.
such a blessing.
Yeah. Well, I'm so before we get to the Lenten motherhood, I have a question for you that's
Okay.
very off topic and very just because of something that I found out this morning on Twitter. So, who is the most surprising public figure that follows you on Twitter? Because you have a lot more followers than I do.
Honestly, I have no idea. I'm like looking. I have no idea. I don't honestly pay that much attention to that. So I don't know. You
Okay.
should tell me.
Well, I don't know. I just know who the most unexpected public figure that follows me on Twitter. I just checked this morning and I'm like, why does Robert Kennedy Jr. follow me?
Oh, that's awesome.
But like,
That's super
why?
cool.
Like,
Oh,
I don't understand. Someone must be running his Twitter
that's
account
super
or something.
funny.
But I don't understand. I'm like, the nephew of a former president is
And
following
he's
you.
like an anti-vax champion.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
So I just thought that was the most bizarre thing. So I was wondering if you might have some bizarre person, public figure following you.
Honestly,
Um,
I'm sure there are. There have been times when people have followed me and I've been, like, oh my goodness, I can't believe this. But off the top of my head, I don't know. I'm sorry. Sorry to
that
disappoint.
No, that's fine. That's fine. It's not on topic, so I didn't. It wasn't necessarily expectation, but if there was someone that off the top of your head, you know, came to mind, I was just wondering if if there might be somebody. But on topic, Lenten motherhood.
Mhm.
This is the most important topic of the day. So how old are your children, first of all, so we can get sort of an idea?
Yeah, so my oldest is 7.5 years old. So we have 7.5. My second just turned 6 last Friday, but we celebrated it on Saturday. Poor kid, he has his birthday right in the middle of Lent. And then
Mm.
the number 3, she just turned 4 in December. And then my number 4, he's a crazy kid, but he is 2.5. And then my youngest turns 1 here on the 27th. So just in a week and a half or so.
So all very young kids, uh,
Yes. Hmm.
but they're gonna be getting up there soon. The-
Yeah, it's actually been kind of fun with the older kids now at the ages that they're at because they're starting to understand Lent. They are
Mhm.
getting to that age of reason. And so it is easier to talk to them about why we're making the sacrifices that we're making, or, we're having more of those conversations, which has been really cool.
Yeah, awesome. So what age do you like? Would you start having your children fast?
I think the church says around age 13, if I'm not mistaken, where you can actually have them fasting if they're ready for that. So I don't have my kids fast. We do abstain from meat,
Hmm.
obviously, but we do that mostly for most of the year anyway. I mean, occasionally we do have meat on Friday or something if there's meat that needs to be cooked. But generally we do meatless Fridays year round, and then even some Wednesdays, most Wednesdays I try to go meatless as well. Just as someone who is enrolled in the scapular and stuff. So
Hmm.
that's normal for us. But in terms of actual fasting for the kids, I don't think they start fasting until they're teens.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I remember when I was a kid that like first and second grade, we would have like snack time,
Hmm.
but we couldn't have our normal snack time during Lent.
Oh my goodness!
It
Wow.
it was like we had like saltine crackers as a replacement. I
Oh.
I knew I was so upset about that when I was a kid.
Oh, I'm sure most
Uh
kids were. Yeah, I
and I
wouldn't
didn't
do that, but
and I didn't know that like that's not even a rule.
mm-mm. No, that's that could be nice, but I think too kids, their bodies, they're growing so
Mhm.
much that I would shy away from that just because their bodies really need that. I mean, my kids and any parent with young kids, they know that how often they're begging for food. It's like constant. I live in my kitchen because they want to eat all the time. So I think that's, their bodies are growing and their brains are developing very rapidly. So I don't know. I'm like very much, God gave us a certain physiology, and I think it's wise to be attuned to that.
Mhm. Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. I just have my
You poor
internal
thing.
frustration about
You
first
poor
and
thing.
second grade. Give me back my snack time. That's what I have to say.
I will say
Uh
I have cut out like sweets and stuff, except for John's birthday, obviously. I mean that I didn't want to be cruel. He's 6. but on Saturday, we got a cake and stuff. Normally I love to bake cakes, but this stage of life, it's just really hard to do that. I was delivering a meal anyway on Saturday, but yeah, my husband took the older kids who are not sick to a trampoline park, and they had like a little birthday bash there, just them and their dad. So that was fun.
what kind of cakes do you make?
So I mean, I love baking and decorating. So and it's not something I grew up with. Like we would maybe get a yellow box cake for, just the pancake growing up for our birthday, nothing extraordinary, which is fine. But I really enjoy like making and decorating bigger cakes. I've made a unicorn cake for my oldest daughter once, and yeah, just like all kinds of stuff. It's a lot of fun for me. So,
Okay.
but it's really time consuming. So my poor kids, now they're just getting cake from Costco.
Aw. maybe one day when they're older, maybe you'll
Yes.
have time.
Yes, exactly. Ooh, sorry.
Is Verona
Avery,
okay?
I'm recording, honey. Yeah, you can take Veronica. And then it's fine. Yep. You can shut the door. Okay, sorry.
Uh,
This is live.
well, yeah. Anyways, so I mean that's great. But then again, it is Lent, so
hmm
cakes aren't really as prominent
Exactly. Yep. No,
unless
we did the
maybe.
king cake thing on Fat Tuesday with the little
Wait, what's
baby.
the king cake?
Are you serious? Okay.
I don't know.
So, okay, Fat Tuesday or Shrove Tuesday. Before Lent, traditionally people have used up all of their eggs, butter, sugar, everything they had in the house for making sweets. They would use it up on Fat Tuesday and eat and themselves into oblivion, getting ready for the Great Fast. And so the tradition, at least in New Orleans, is to make a king cake. You might make it on Epiphany as well. That's another common time to make the king cake. Because of the wise men bestowing those kingly gifts and stuff, and Christ the King being born, all that stuff. But Fat Tuesday is also another day to make king cake, and it's like a glorified cinnamon roll almost with green, yellow, and purple sugar on it, and you stick a little plastic baby in there after you bake it. It's weird,
What?
but I
Why?
love it. I think it's like Christ the King, little baby. And whoever gets the piece with the baby in it gets to be king or queen for the day.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. So we did that
I've
to get ready
never
for that.
heard of that.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, no, it's a lot of fun. We started doing it a few years ago, and the kids have really enjoyed it. It's a lot of fun for them.
Where'd you first hear of that?
I think I was reading Kendra Tierney's the Catholic compendium of, oh, what is it? The liturgical compendium or something. She has this book that goes through the year, like the liturgical year and all a bunch of feast days. It's in the new calendar. It's the new calendar kind of centered on that, but it has a lot of really great ideas for different foods you can have during different feast days, and different penances like during Lent, things, ideas, that kind of stuff. But for every season, she kind of goes through and explains it and talks about different feast days and the history behind a lot of different saints and feast days. It's a great resource for anyone who's looking for something to help them with ideas for how to live a more liturgical life. Definitely go check out Catholic All Year, Kendra Tierney's book.
Yeah, I wonder if there's a old calendar. Uh,
I was
like
asking somebody recently if she's planning on making one because I believe Jake Tate from Mass of the Ages he's somehow connected with them. Like
he's connected with
um,
a lot of people.
he is, but I think maybe they're friends with the
Oh
Tierneys
yeah.
or something. And I asked him if she was thinking about making a more traditional calendar type compendium. And I don't know right now. I mean, I think her husband just passed away and stuff.
Oh
So please pray for that family and for the repose of his soul. But yeah, maybe someday. I think that would be a really excellent resource.
yeah. Well, thank you for telling us about that resource to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. I love uh, including more and more like traditions based on the liturgical year.
I really think that we're liturgical beings. Like, obviously, God created us for liturgy, but it's in every aspect of our lives involves some kind of a cycle, right? There's nothing, we have a life cycle. Women have their own kind of cycles, but like, and then you have the church cycle, you have the seasons, they cycle. Um, Everything is we're just ordered towards liturgy, we're ordered towards um it's sort of that type of living. And so I think it's really important that we sort of dive into the liturgical seasons in a way that really calls us into, like, draws us down into what the season is about, because those seasons change, and so those different seasons call us to recollect different things about God and ourselves and our relationship to Him. So yeah, I definitely think it has made my Catholic faith so much richer to start incorporating these things the best that I can.
Yeah. How do you create a penitential atmosphere for Lent in your household?
Well, as the heart of the home, so to speak, I think how we decorate and set up our home is really important just for creating that atmosphere. So really stripping it down quite a bit. One of the first things I do is take down all of our Christmas decor, of course, but like any sort of winter decor. So right now above our mantle, I usually have these two kind of planter things that are above our mantle. And usually there are flowers in there and some kind of greenery. But during Lent, there's either nothing in there or dried out palm leaves from Palm Sunday that I put up there just as a reminder. And then really start going through the house and kind of doing that spring cleaning, but getting rid of all that excess. That's a really big way. I mean, I was just telling you before we got started, we just got rid of a bunch of beds this weekend and tons of stuff, just purge, and really trying to live a more penitential life that way, more minimalist, and trying to resist a life of sort of materialism. I think embracing more poverty and just putting off buying things, not that instant click of a button, I'm just going to buy this because I want it, which I mean I have done that. I'm not perfect. I'm trying. This Lent is that's one of the things I'm trying to focus on. I haven't done it perfectly, but I'm trying. And then other things that I try to do within the home is and this year I will be doing is during Holy Week veiling all of our icons and statues in the house um, with some sort of purple fabric or something. But that also kind of that, I don't know, that sensory deprivation of not seeing the Lord in my home everywhere and sort of preparing my heart like that. Yeah, that deprivation and that longing for God, creating something in my life that calls me to long more for the Lord as we prepare for His resurrection. So those are some of the practical ways that I build that space. And then in terms of things that I have with our kids, I mean we're staying away from sweets. My husband and I were not drinking alcohol. That's one of our penances. Although, yes, on Sunday I had a drink. Um, this, but like things like that, just focusing on less and encouraging our kids to make sacrifices. So, one thing I like to do with our kids, and maybe some of your listeners have heard of this, but what we do or what we've started doing is we have 3 jars on our table, on the dining room table. One jar is full of dry beans. And every time our kids make a sacrifice or do a good work, they put one bean into another jar, and then on Easter it becomes jelly beans.
Aw,
Yeah. So it
that's
really encourages them to do
adorable.
more. And then in this other jar, I have a bunch of popsicle sticks with the names of friends and families and prayer intentions. And so whenever they want, they can draw a stick and offer prayer for whatever that prayer intention is. So that's just another way we're doing that. And then I've also incorporated doing devotionals with them throughout the week where I'm trying to teach them how to pray the best that they can at that age. But I just think now is the time that we need to be praying more. And I feel like it's my job as their mom to sort of teach them how to do that because I don't think many of us are taught how to pray. And then we get older and our prayer life is not very good because we don't know how to do it. So,
Yeah. Yeah, that's I think a lot of Catholics returning to the faith or sort of reinvigorated in the faith as adults just don't really know
mhm.
what they're doing on a lot of different levels, but prayer is definitely one of those areas a lot of us are lacking.
Oh, absolutely. And I think too that's a draw out of the church, especially when you go to a lot of more Protestant, going to Protestant denominations, it seems like they really know how to pray because they're very charismatic and things like that, which it can be appealing to certain kinds of people, right? And so realizing the the depths and the treasures that we have within the church in terms of devotions and things like that. There's so much there in our toolbox that we just have to avail ourselves of. But learning how to do that prayer and really embracing those devotions, that's another thing, right? Like learning how to embrace meditative prayer or contemplative prayer, and really learning how to sit with the Lord, because it can be easy to just say those rote prayers, vocal prayers, and not really rest with God, which is what prayer is ordered towards. So
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm just trying to teach my children how to do that a little bit more.
How do you approach that? How do you approach teaching your kids how to pray more?
Yeah, so first I think I have to show them, like I have to be doing it, right? And so in the morning I've been reading my Bible, especially at like breakfast and stuff. Like I want them to see their mom reading sacred scripture for one, or listening to it. Like I've been doing the Bible in a year with Father Mike Schmitz, staying on top of that. The best that I actually just finally got caught up. I'm pretty proud of that because I was behind.
Congratulations.
I was really behind, but I'm caught up now. And so definitely just being immersed in sacred scripture more. And then in the afternoons with our snacks, a lot of days I've been pulling out Jesus, what is it? Jesus Calling, I think is a kid's devotional. I think it's written by a Protestant, but I haven't seen anything in there really that's anti-Catholic or bad theology yet. If I do, I'll have to find something else. But so far, so it just has like a little devotional and you read it from the perspective of God, and then it has other readings to go into the Bible with to sort of tease out the point that's being made. And so often we'll read through it and I'll ask the kids, what do you think this is saying? Like, what do you think God is saying to you here? And how would you respond to that? Like if God is right here with you right now, how would you respond to him with that? And what are the things that you're thinking about when you hear that? And then we go to sacred scripture and we read about it and explain more of what scripture is saying in there and kind of ask them more of those same questions and then give a moment for silence. Obviously their attention spans are short, so they can't do, and they don't totally understand it yet. So I can't like, here's 15 minutes of quiet prayer time that we're going to have. They just don't understand that quite yet. But really laying the foundation of when I'm reading this stuff, what should I be looking for? What are the questions I should be asking myself in prayer as I'm trying to contemplate God and what he's saying to me here? So just kind of generating those ideas so that they do it naturally as they get older.
Yeah. How do you sort of integrate Lent with your homeschooling?
Yeah, I just think a lot of homeschooling is just your day-to-day living. So, I mean, just I view pretty much all this other stuff as a part of their schooling, right? So everything else that we're doing in addition to, math, reading, writing, all of that stuff, this is the school of life. And so so that's just how I view it. I mean, I don't we don't have a special curriculum focused on their religious education right now. I mean, we could, and there are things that I do have available to me to use for that stuff, like different curriculum, but I haven't because I just have too many little kids. It's too hard to do that schooling regularly that way. So that's why I try to live a liturgical life in our home daily. So we do pray the morning offering most days before we start our schoolwork. And we do pray the Angelus before we have lunch. And we pray a family rosary at night. I mean, there are certain times of day that we're praying together as a family, on top of the devotional prayer time that we get in a few times a week and things like that. So that to me, I think it's going to be more salient for them as they get older than those little lessons that we might do so often.
Yeah. Were you homeschooled when you were a kid?
I was not. I'm very much a homeschool or not a. I'm passionate about homeschooling because I was public
Not.
schooled. I
Yeah.
was government schooled. Yeah.
Governments.
hmm
Okay.
In the
Yeah.
middle of nowhere. I mean, in literally the middle of nowhere. Our school was in a cornfield, pretty much, and we had drive your tractor to school day once a year. So yeah.
That's great. Did you have were there any uh Lenten traditions that you experienced when you were a kid?
No, not really. I mean, Ash Wednesday, and then no meat on Fridays, so filet o fish Fridays often at McDonald's, but those don't really constitute a real tradition. No, this is all very new to me. My mom was raised Catholic. Uh, my mom's side of the family were very Irish Catholic, and I just think a lot of it was kind of cultural Catholicism and was somewhat nominal. So a lot of these things, we didn't pray the rosary together as a family. we didn't have a liturgical life. Our faith was kind of Sunday morning. That was kind of it. And Wednesdays when my parents got to go have date night, while we went to CCD or whatever. And God bless him. I think she just wasn't really equipped, and she didn't really know. She didn't know a lot of this stuff, and we have a lot more resources available to us now with the internet and things like that, where we can do so much more research. So as I got older, and especially after my sister died, that took obviously that changed the course of my life in many ways. I was pretty serious about my faith then, but not in hindsight, not really. The way
Yeah.
your faith grows over time, you consider yourself somewhat, faithful and engaged, but it has taken on new depth over the years, and I would say the death of my sister, that was pretty pivotal. So, yeah, no, I wish there would have been more of that tradition, but like I said, I just don't think my parents really knew. And my stepdad was a convert to Catholicism, so he didn't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I feel like so many of us are barren regarding traditions, just in general.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Well, there was such a lapse in catechesis for a very long time, 60
there's
some years still ongoing in many ways.
yeah.
And so if that stuff is not being handed on, you lose that wisdom. You lose it. And when parents are relegating their duties to teach to other institutions as they become so accustomed, um, then yeah, you just sort of get this huge gaping hole in education and catechesis. So trying to reclaim that a little bit in our home the best that we can.
Yeah. Also a decrease in proper celebration as well as proper penance. Like like
Yes.
both proper celebrations and proper penance have both decreased immensely, and you end up with incredibly improper celebration, secular celebrations,
Mm-hmm.
and no penance whatsoever.
Yeah, like St. Patty's Day.
Uh,
Talk
we're
about
gonna
excess. It's like we're sort of known for our over drinking on St. Patty's Day, but in Ireland, it's totally not like that at all. And even my grandpa would say St. Patty's Day is for going to mass. It's for spending time with your family. It's not for going. That's for amateurs. Is going out and getting drunk. That's not how the Irish celebrate.
well, that's the day everyone is Irish.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
So,
Yep.
well, speaking of St. Patrick's Day, how do you approach St. Patrick's Day when it's on a Friday in Lent like it is
Mm.
this week?
Yeah, so our archdiocese actually has a full dispensation this year. I think probably because there are so many Irish Catholics in St. Paul. I am not going to be doing corned beef and cabbage and all that stuff on Friday. We'll probably still just do fish and whatever. I think I read somewhere salmon is kind of an Irish delicacy, so maybe we'll have salmon
Hmm.
instead. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'll probably go through teaching my kids about the Trinity with the the clover and all that stuff. We'll probably talk about that a little bit. There's Unformed. I love Formed for the most part, but they have a great little movie about St. Patrick that I'll probably let my kids watch as well for like the 10 millionth time. But it's super cool because it shows him dealing with the druids and all the snakes and stuff. It's awesome. So it's a good little cartoon for the kids.
Okay, awesome. Also, in my diocese, it's basically pick another day to give up meat.
Oh yeah. Yep. I know some dioceses sort of did like either full dispensations and then others did partial, like yes, you can have meat, but X, Y, and Z, you have other things that you need to do. So yeah, for anyone listening and wondering, maybe check that out and investigate if your archdiocese has put out anything on that.
Yeah, I think there's an article that I can put a link in the description for so
Mm-hmm.
people can check out if their diocese, like what their diocese has said, or if they've said anything for guidance in that.
Mm-hmm.
So part of Lent is fasting, and uh, what are the exemptions for like pregnant women?
You almost said pregnant people. I was going to slap you across the
No,
screen if you did.
Well, it's either going to be pregnant mothers
Yeah,
or
I'm
pregnant women,
teasing.
not
I'm just so
pregnant
sick of all the
people.
language that is being used right now. It's so awful. But in terms of, so some of the dispensations for fasting, I think that's a really good question, because every time someone says something about fasting, you get all the people who are like, "But I'm exempt," which is fine. That's fine. Um, but
You
the
don't
people
need to
that
be a little celebrating too much about that.
well, that, but I
Just
think
kidding.
people are like, it almost feels like, I'm not saying this is always the case, because I've been that person too, mostly just as a point of informing people. But if you're pregnant or nursing, you are not expected to fast, because you're nourishing another human being and burning like 1,000 more calories every day than you would be otherwise. Your body and your baby need the nourishment. So I haven't been fasting. I actually enjoy fasting. But I haven't been able to do that in several years with the
Yeah.
rate that we've been having our kids. Um, but yeah, so that's one area. Also, if you have a longstanding disease or even autoimmune issues, like I do as well, you don't have to fast. It's like if your body cannot handle it, the church doesn't demand that you do it. Can it be good and meritorious if you do it? Yeah, I think within certain parameters, but also, uh, I think the other thing that we need to talk about as Catholics is just that humble obedience, and that can go either way. Like, God gives you your crosses, and you don't have to add to your cross. There are times in Scripture where people try and go above and beyond what God has asked them to do, and He curses them for it. And so sometimes I think we need to be cognizant of accepting our crosses as they are, and not feeling like we have to add to them needlessly. God has in his infinite wisdom done these things. Can it be meritorious? Yes, but I think it's wise to speak with your priest or a spiritual director if you're considering adding extra penance to your life outside of what God has already graced you with. So that's what I will say about that.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. So you've spent a number of Lents not fasting because
Hmm.
of pregnancies.
Yeah, I have, and then I try to be very diligent, avoiding sweets. It's hard because we live in a time where we have so much at our disposal, more than anyone ever has in the history of man. Being able to have sweets so readily, being able to have alcohol so readily, all of these things that forever were not as readily available to us and weren't so pervasive. I mean, especially in certain Catholic cultures where everyone was doing it. Everyone is making the same sacrifices and penances for the most part. And so that was just a part of the culture. Now we live in a very postmodern world where it's very secular, and most people don't give to, they don't care that the rest of us this is our season of penance, the great fast. So yeah, it makes it the temptation all the more. I'm just sort of thinking about how Israel was so, in the Old Testament, the Lord was very much telling them you cannot commingle with these pagans because the temptation is so strong to adopt their religion or irreligion. And so we live, especially in a country that is praised for being kind of a melting pot. That is a drawback, right? We're sort of intermingled so much with pagans and people who aren't fasting, and so the temptation is stronger. So I think we have to be aware of that and be more diligent. If we're not drinking alcohol or things like that, you have to be very determined, and also not beat yourself up too much if you cave, but just start over. It's I tell my kids all the time, because obviously, and we're like children. I think often I look at the ways that I'm crying out to God and I think, wow, I sound like a petulant child. I'm ungrateful. I'm this. My kids tend to be that way too sometimes. And I always try to remind my kids, like, you can always make a different choice. Like, just because you made a bad choice here, you hit your sibling or you chose to be disobedient, doesn't mean that you have to behave that way the rest of the day. Sometimes I think we fall into this habit of thinking, well, I messed up. Now the whole day is tanked. So I'm just going to do what I want. There's definitely a temptation there to just, whatever, I already screwed up. So I'll try again tomorrow. But you can try again now. Like nothing is stopping you from trying again now. So if you're struggling with your penances, maybe reconsider if they're too much for you. But if not, then just recommit yourself. It's okay. That is the life of a Christian, is that constant call to conversion and reversion. So anyway, I just
Yeah.
think that's something people need to hear sometimes.
It's also well, it used to be a melting pot of different ethnicities. Not America used to be not a melting pot of pagans.
Right.
You know,
Right. Well, yeah. At
so
least
it's
now, yeah, you had all these different forms of Protestantism, which is a little bit different, but at least everyone was
yeah,
still a professed Christian, for the
yeah,
most part.
exactly. So it's definitely changed a lot regarding that and become a lot less Christian, just exceedingly.
Yeah, definitely.
So, what are ways we can help mothers in Lent? There any
Oh, that's a good question.
there any like special alms giving, or any I don't know, any ways kids can help their parents, anything like that?
Hmm. I think that's a really good question. I think if you are past childbearing age, you know, or your children are older, I think it's so wise to do things, to go out of your way to help families who are in the throes of what my friend Andrew Lane calls the toddler tunnel. Um, because you honestly can't see that the end will be in sight someday. It does feel like you're stuck, kind of, because the days are long and you're usually sleep deprived and malnourished, all these things. And yes, as your kids get older, you have bigger problems. That's one thing. But just on a basic level, that can be really hard for women, especially in the winter when we're cooped up inside for so long. We can't get outside and be in the sun. Our kids are stir crazy, things like that. So, I mean, I had a family drop off, I think for the last 2 years now, they've dropped off just pizza on Valentine's Day. Um, just randomly, unannounced. They'll just call me and say, "Hey, we're on our way to your house. We're bringing dinner for you guys tonight." And I cannot even describe how much that has meant to me. And I don't know if they know this, but Valentine's Day is the day before my sister's accident anniversary. And
Hmm.
so it just has blown me away every single year that they've done that. Just the thoughtful nature of that, and very humbling, because I have to receive that, and sometimes in my pride I don't want to receive people blessing me, because I think that there have been times in my life where I've sort of wanted to be like, well, I can do it all, I don't need your help. But the reality is, I think we build up community that way by making sacrifices and helping young mothers that way. I think that's something that's been lost in our culture, which is why women are so overwhelmed by motherhood. That's why they're so eager to send their kids to daycare, because they lack a support system. And so if you're looking for ways to help out young moms, offer to watch their kids for a couple of hours, or bring them a meal. If you know a woman who just had a baby, make it a point to bring them a meal if you are able to do so. I think those things are really, really important for building a culture of life, but also it's a real sacrifice, and it's not monetary. If you want to do something more monetary, get involved at your local pregnancy center, donate there, provide material assistance. If you could donate diapers, formula, all of that stuff. But those are all really easy ways to just support your community, support moms in your community and their children, by virtue of supporting the mom. If the mom is happy, the kids are going to be good. They're going to be okay, you know. So,
Yeah, awesome. We're both from the Midwest. And the the weather in the Midwest kind of
I'm so
creates its
over it.
own penitential atmosphere.
I'm so over the winter.
Me too.
I want the snow to stop. I cannot believe how much snow there is still. And yes,
Well,
it feels like a desert, sort of. I'm waiting for the greenery. I feel like green, that springtime. It's it's so nourishing for the soul. But that's what the thing that's so beautiful about winter, and we have to embrace that too. It's just that it is this sort of physical embodiment of spiritual desolation and death to self. You're sort of deprived of all of the vitality of life for that season, and then you're able to receive it with so much more gratitude and appreciation when it does arrive. It is that kind of Easter moment where the earth proclaims that the Lord is risen and He's alive. So yeah, this season is hard, but spring
Yeah.
is coming.
Well, regarding your your beans turning into jelly beans and that
Hmm.
sort of thing,
Yeah.
as well as what was the other one?
I just have
The
popsicle sticks. Kids
popsicle
can
sticks.
draw.
Yeah.
Some people will do like they'll make a crown with clay and they'll put toothpicks in it. And then every time the kids make a sacrifice, they can take out a pick. You know, they can pick out a thorn and help
Mm,
Jesus that way. That's another
that's
way
cool.
that people do it too. Yeah, my kids would stab themselves, so I can't do stuff like that. But
Well, do your kids really get into it? Like, how excited are they to do those types of things?
so they do. It's funny because especially now that the older ones are, 6 and 7.5, they do every time they do something now, they'll ask, Mom, was that a sacrifice? And so they are very aware of like doing good works and they're still trying to figure out, no, it's not a good work if I had to ask you to do it. Like now that's an act of obedience that is not of your own volition, so to speak. So trying to instill in them, oh, and I can look for ways to be helpful instead of being told to be helpful. That's basically what we're trying to work on. And so every year we get a new chance and they get to develop that as their cognitive abilities allow. So but I do think starting young so that you sort of plant the seeds, and then every year you sort of get to nourish that more and more until oh my goodness, I would expect next year my oldest will be 8.5. She'll be at a really good age where she can start going, yeah, I'm going to do all of these things because I should do them, not because I'm being told to do them. And I can get more jelly beans that way. My kids want to be little entrepreneurs. They tell me all the time that they're entrepreneurs because we read the Tuttle Twins. So
That's funny.
yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Is there anything, other big traditions like Holy Week?
Yeah, so I think Holy Week, the big one is covering up all the icons and stuff. That's the one that comes top of mind to me. Or even take some people even take them down and put them away for the week. But of course, you have service on Holy Thursday and then Good Friday. Going to all of those things. I mean, that's enough in and of itself. I think is
Hmm.
really living liturgically. I will say too that throughout Lent on Fridays we pray the Stations of the Cross as a family, and so of course that's a big deal on Good Friday to do that. So yeah, those are some of the things that I would do during Holy Week.
Have you ever been to a pre-55 Holy Week?
I
Or
haven't, no.
neither have I.
I thought you were going to say, "Oh, you need to go."
No, I want to go at some point, but
Yeah, me too.
uh,
Yeah, that would be awesome.
I'm not blessed in that way at the
Mm,
moment, or
yeah.
at least previously. Who knows? But yeah, no, it's just that's one of those things that like I'm looking forward to experiencing in the future,
Yeah.
is to be able to have access or to be able to experience sort of extra traditions that have were stripped from the new rite.
Yeah, and I think too, it's we live in such an interesting time. I mean, we drive about 25 minutes to go to mass, which is not far at all. I'm not saying that at all. But we pass about four different Catholic churches on our way to our parish. I mean, in fact, I have two parishes within a mile of my house pretty much. And yeah, the liturgy has really kept us away from both of those places. And I think, man, how easy would something like Holy Week be if we just went up the block to
Oh,
go celebrate, right?
yeah.
And so being able, I mean, we were supposed to be immersed in our local communities that way, right? I
Hmm.
think it's been so sad and damaging to the church how divided we have been because of what has happened as a result of the Second Vatican Council in terms of liturgical abuse and just people, like, we just shouldn't have this division. I shouldn't feel like I have to drive 25 minutes to go to a reverend Novus Ordo. I know they do exist occasionally.
You talk
Um,
about unicorns.
yeah, we do. I mean, it is really a unicorn, but he would celebrate the Latin Mass only if he were able to do so, which is one thing I love about going to Mass there is I know where his heart is too. Um,
Yeah.
that makes a big difference. But it just shouldn't be like that. It would be so nice if I felt like we could bring our kids to the churches here without having to explain to them, no, honey, you can't leave Mass to go do arts and crafts. This is not craft time. This is time to we do this as a community together. This is not, I don't need you to go do Sunday school in the middle of Mass. It's just stuff like that. I don't like
Yeah.
that. I don't like that.
Yeah, that's unfortunate.
Mhm.
It especially easy with it would be so much easier with you for with little kids, going such a
Yes.
close location.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I do appreciate Novus Ordo priests where I sort of know where their heart is and where they're trying to make as much
Yeah.
reverent alterations uh, to not even the missal, just the way we celebrate the missal, because a
Mhm.
lot of the a lot of the things that are irreverent about the missal are just like traditions,
Mhm.
in some way, like things that we don't like, that aren't normal, that are just I guess things that started in the 70s and word from our affiliate, Bishop Sheen Rosaries. You've probably worn through the chain of your cheap plastic rosary. Other rosaries simply can't stand up to the wear and tear of everyday life. Bishop Sheen rosaries are made of solid metal beads and paracord to withstand any condition and are backed with a lifetime warranty. Upgrade your rosary to a Bishop Sheen rosary made to fit your lifestyle or buy one for a friend. Each rosary sold supplies 2 weeks of food for a school kid in Uganda. You use the exclusive link down below to help support our efforts here at Plotlines. The link will take you to sheenrosaries.com. Be sure to use the code Plotlines10.
I will say, like, one of the local parishes that are super close to our house, they offer First Friday Mass, which my parish, 25 minutes away, it offers Friday Mass at 8 a.m. I can't do that with my kids regularly, but I can do noon at this parish up the street. And so, even though it's not my favorite, we do go. But I will
Mhm.
say this, I know where his heart is. I know he loves Latin. He's incorporating it more into the Mass and stuff, and he's celebrating Ad Orientem for this Friday Mass. But more than that, when he holds up the Eucharist, it's not like this quick, all right, we're holding up the Eucharist and then we're done. He lets our Lord linger in everyone's presence above, and you
Mhm.
know the devotion that is in his heart. And for me, as a parishioner, that is so moving to see a priest who truly believes that it's the Eucharist. So even if the liturgy isn't my favorite, I can see his heart when he is celebrating Mass, and I can see the direction that he's taking the Mass in his parish. And so I do give him more grace in that way. I don't want to go to Mass there on Sundays with my kids. I just don't,
Yeah.
but not yet. Maybe someday, but not yet.
Yeah, I also see that trend in a lot of places, that similar desire. There's a lot of more ad orientem masses that I know of that are like special, like Thursdays or Fridays or something like that. So that does seem to be a bit of a trend. But yeah, so it would be obviously so much easier if that was if we weren't in liturgical disunity. You're muted. Okay,
I am still muted. That's right. Sorry. Little
that's fine.
Veronica, she's having a rough morning.
That's all right. She might be signaling that we should wrap up.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's really fine.
So, thank you, Angela. I will have again links for your work as well as specifically your YouTube channel.
Thank
Please,
you.
if you're not go subscribe to Integrated with Angela Erickson. She
Thank
has
you.
far too few subscribers for her quality of content. So
Thank
thank you,
you.
Angela, for coming on, and God bless.
God bless you.